And if Denmark wants to get to a conclusion, but nobody knows if they even have any right, title, or interest. The people are going to probably vote for independence or to come into the United States.
A lot about Trump and also their opinion about Trump.
I hate it.
Oh, that's gonna hurt!
First, this interview with a Canadian backfires.
Because Canada and the United States, that would really be something.
And maybe you'll win a Stanley Cup.
We have health care.
But we have guns.
Yeah, well, we don't need guns.
Can I see your guns?
I don't have guns.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
And in this, I mean, could it be that when one steps out of the Fox News MAGA bubble, you realize people aren't exactly thrilled about the possibility of being colonized by a thrice-married sycophant found liable of sexual assault who couldn't point to Greenland on a map if placed on the back of a ketchup bottle?
We need them for economic security. People really don't even know if Denmark has any legal right to it. But if they do, they should give it up.
In the wake of the man presented as the peacetime president during his campaign, saying that he can't assure the American people that he won't flex military muscle to acquire Greenland and the Panama Canal. As for the crickets from those who claimed they weren't neocons.
Please.
President, thank you. Wanted to touch on the world on fire that you mentioned, but let's start, if we could, with your references to Greenland and the Panama Canal. So forth. Can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion?
No.
And can you tell us a little bit about what your plan is? Are you going to negotiate a new treaty? Are you going to ask the Canadians to hold a vote? What is the strategy?
Yeah, I can't assure you. You're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either of those two.
Fox News thought it might be a good idea after airing imperialist propaganda like this.
I get it. You say that Americans don't have a problem with Canadians, and we don't. But it seems like you have a problem with us. Because if I were a citizen of another country and I was a neighbor of the United States, I would consider it a privilege to be taken over by the United States of America. That's what everybody else in the world wants, American citizenship. For some reason, that's repellent to you Canadians. And I find that personally offensive, Premier. It'd be adding Montana, basically, for the Republicans, and electorally like a Texas for the Democrats. And I don't like that. But the fact that they don't want us to take them over makes me want to invade. I want to quench my imperialist thirst.
To get boots on the ground, to get a real feel of what people in Greenland are thinking instead of, rounding up homeless people like Don Jr. did for a photo op. They actually spoke to people on the street free from bribery and exploitative behavior. And well, let's just say it backfired. Network aired a live report Tuesday afternoon from Nuuk where its London-based correspondent Alex Hogan made the revelation while standing outside in the frigid weather. Hogan did, however, track down one MAGA superfan who's been making his rounds across Danish media. But aside from that, it appears that most shared the same sentiment across the board, which is, nah, we're good.
And the hot topic here has been President-elect Trump's comments about buying this Danish territory. Take a listen.
A lot about Trump and also their opinion about Trump.
I hate it. And basically, I don't know what he's aiming at.
For me personally, I want to stick with Danish government.
Well, most of the people that we talked with said that they did not support Trump's comments and found them offensive.
When the president said there's an artificial line separating us and Canada, it sounds a lot like what Putin talked about with Ukraine. Can you imagine if the Chinese said, Lower Manhattan is Chinatown, so we'll just annex that because there are a lot of Chinese there and they speak our language there, or in Little Italy. We're going to take Italians, we're going to take Little Italy because there are a lot of Italian. It's silly.
Now, as we know, Trump has spoke adamantly in the past week about annexing the island, which is 3 times the size of Texas, seemingly for military and economic purposes, which his most prized megaphones of Fox News and Newsmax have helped amplify.
Okay, so could you imagine a world, your dad is president, where Greenland is, maybe a U.S. territory in the not-so-distant future, like Puerto Rico, for example?
I'd love to see that. My father understands how to wield America's economic might. He understands how to wield America's military might. He knows how to do these things. He's not a guy like Joe Biden, who's a career bureaucrat, never done anything in his life. My father, first and foremost, is a real estate guy, but he understands how to utilize these things for the benefit of both nations.
80% ice Greenland, population only 57,000. You were on the ground there. Did the people there that you spoke with and interacted with, did they seem interested in the idea of getting closer to the United States and maybe being liberated from Denmark, who's had control of Greenland for the last 200 years?
100%. I mean, honestly, I didn't see a single negative. I mean, we had crowds waving as we were landing. We went to restaurants, invited locals in. We went to the local bars. We went in there. We went to some of the cultural sites.
It appears that this rhetoric has some Trump supporters asking, well, how exactly is this going to lower the cost of eggs? Newsflash, it was never about that for the egomaniac in chief.
Mr. Trump, I ask you as a supporter and a voter, how in the hell is having Canada and Greenland and renaming the Gulf of America going to save me money on my grocery bill and my taxes?
Carry out an order from President Trump to seize Greenland, a territory of our NATO ally Denmark, by force, or would you comply with an order to take over the Panama Canal?
Senator, I will emphasize that President Trump received 77 million votes to be the lawful commander-in-chief of this country.
We're not talking about the election. My question is, would you use our military to take over Greenland or an ally of Denmark?
Senator, one of the things that President Trump is so good at is never strategically tipping his hand. And so I would never in this public forum give one way or another direct what orders the president would give me in any context.
That sounds to me that you would contemplate carrying out such an order to basically invade Greenland and take over the Panama Canal.
And this comes as another blow to the MAGA PR machine around this decision after it was exposed that Donald Trump Jr.'s day trip earlier this month to scout out the city and meet with residents was staged, with Greenlandic politicians stating, quote, no journalists were allowed to interview him. It was all staged to make it seem like we Greenlandic people were MAGA and love to be part of the USA, which, if this interview is anything to go by, quite clearly is not the case.
We respect the boundaries of other countries. We expect other countries to respect our boundaries. Vladimir Putin with Russia did not do that and invaded Ukraine. And we have pushed back hard against that. That is world order. That's international law. But I want to make a second point, and that is, why is Donald Trump doing this? And I think the answer is, let's have a big distraction and several more questions so we don't spend more time on Pete Hegseth, the nominee to be the head of the Department of Defense. So we don't spend more time on Tulsi Gabbard, who has been in the pocket of Putin and is not someone who should be trusted with our secrets. So that we don't spend more time on Robert Kennedy's views on vaccines. In other words, we have a job in front of us right now, and that is advise and consent on the nominees who are there to run our government.
People really don't even know if Denmark has any legal right to it. But if they do, they should give it up because we need it for national security.
Of course, everybody is interested in hearing what is Greenland's position. And Greenland is not for sale. Greenland will never be for sale. We're well aware of the importance that Greenland has, but we're not for sale, and it's not up to US to decide what's going to happen. It's up to the Greenlandic population. Greenland is not mega. Greenland is not going to be mega. I think the majority in Greenland, they find it quite scary, actually, and quite uncomfortable that there's so much focus on Greenland and that US is actually, in a disrespectful way, showing that they would like to be buying Greenland or controlling Greenland. That is not what the population in Greenland wants.
Love this video? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch and help us blow past 500,000 followers.